The first time I handed my mom the envelope, she didn't even look at me. She just slid it across the table toward my dad, like I was paying rent in a boarding house I didn't belong in. "Good," she muttered, eyes glued to her phone. "We were wondering if you'd step up for once." Step up. That's what they called it when I pulled double shifts at the diner, cleaning tables until my wrist ached, just so their electricity wouldn't get shut off in the middle of winter. It wasn't like they were out of money. No, they just said paying utility bills was too boring for them to think about. That was my responsibility as the daughter who stayed nearby. Every week for months, I would cut back on groceries, quietly, skip lunch at work, and tell my son Eli that we were having breakfast for dinner again, which meant toast, eggs, and maybe a little fruit if I could find it on sale. He was 8 years old and smart enough to notice my plate was always lighter than his. "You don't like eggs anymore?" he asked one night, pushing a piece toward me. I smiled like it was nothing and told him I had a big lunch. I didn't tell him I'd only had black coffee. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where you are watching this video when the last overdue notice arrived. I stayed up all night figuring out how much I could give without overdrawing my account. The next morning I handed my dad the cash. He didn't even say thank you, just stuffed it into his jacket pocket and grunted, "About time." By that evening I was home, bone-tired, ready to collapse on the couch with Eli, when the smell hit me. Rich, buttery, sizzling steak. I followed it to my parents' dining room and froze in the doorway. There they were, my parents, my sister Leia and her fiancé laughing over a table set with filet mignon, mashed potatoes, swimming in gravy, and wine that cost more than my weekly paycheck. "Surprise dinner for Leia," my mom chirped without looking up. She had such a stressful week planning her bridal shower, we thought she deserved something special. Looked from the plates piled high with food, to my son, standing behind me in his pajamas, holding the empty cereal bowl he'd taken to bed earlier because he was still hungry. My dad saw him and smirked. "Get him to bed," he said flatly. "Kids don't need late-night snacks, builds bad habits." Leia laughed and cut into her steak. "Besides, maybe if you worked harder, you could afford real meals for him. Can't blame mom and dad for having standards." The room tilted for a second. I wanted to scream, but my voice felt locked somewhere deep in my chest. I turned, guided Eli back to our side of the house, and shut the door. I tucked him in, kissed his forehead, and sat in the dark until I heard the muffled sound of champagne corks popping through the wall that night. As I lay awake listening to the clink of their silverware, something inside me hardened. I'd been bending, breaking, and starving myself for people who saw me as a wallet and a punching bag. And in that moment I knew they'd never see me as family. They were about to see me as something else entirely. I woke up the next morning with a calm I hadn't felt in months. Not relief, no, this was colder than that. It was the kind of calm you get when you finally decide you're done bleeding for people who sharpen knives behind their smiles. I made Eli breakfast, real breakfast pancakes from scratch, while he sat at the counter and told me about a science project he wanted to do. I listened, smiling, tucking every detail away, because whatever happened next, my priority was him, not them. When he left for school, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and thought about every envelope I'd handed over. Every shift I'd worked, every excuse I'd made to hide the truth from my son. The humiliation of last night's scene burned hot enough to light the fuse in my chest. I wasn't going to ask them for kindness anymore. I was going to make sure they understood what it felt like to be on the side with nothing. I started small. I stopped answering calls unless it was about Eli. My mom texted rent due and I didn't reply. My dad called asking me to pick up a few groceries for them, and I sent back a single word: no. At first they thought I was joking. Leia even sent a gif of someone rolling their eyes, followed by, "Come on, it's family." Family. The word sounded poisonous in my head. By the end of the week my mom showed up at my door, waving an unpaid bill in my face, like it was my personal failing. "You think you're too good to help now," she snapped. "After everything we've done for you." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Like throwing steak dinners while my son goes to bed hungry." "Yeah, thanks for everything." She stared at me like I'd spoken in a foreign language. "That was for Leia. She's got real responsibilities. A wedding, a life. You're just here, right?" I said quietly. "Just here. Not for long." That was the moment she realized something had shifted, because her voice softened into that fake, sugary tone she used when she wanted to reel me back in. "Don't be dramatic. We'll work something out." But I wasn't interested in working something out. I was interested in ending something. I started pulling back in ways they didn't notice right away. I canceled the autopay I'd set up for their internet, their water bill, and their gas. I redirected my paycheck to a separate account they didn't know about. I said no to emergency loans. No to just this once. No to the constant drip of obligations that had kept me chained to them. Then I made sure they saw exactly what I'd been capable of all along when it wasn't going into their pockets. I started stocking my kitchen with fresh fruit, real coffee, steaks of my own. Not to eat with them, to eat with Eli in full view when they stopped by uninvited. I let them watch him bite into juicy watermelon while they muttered about being short on cash this week. It wasn't enough. Not yet. This wasn't just about withholding help anymore. It was about making them feel the exact kind of small, overlooked, and replaceable they'd made me feel for years. And the opportunity came faster than I expected in the form of Leia's precious wedding plans. Leia's wedding was treated like the second coming in my parents' house. Every conversation, every errand, every cent they spent was bent toward making her day perfect. My job, apparently, was to smile and pitch in financially, emotionally, physically. Like the beautiful, invisible older sister I'd always been. I waited until they were too far in to back out. The venue was booked, the catering deposit paid, the dress hanging in my parents' spare room like it was a holy relic. My mom had even called me, voice dripping with mock sincerity, to say, "I know you've been difficult lately, but this is Leia's moment. Put the past aside." I said I would. I let them believe it. On the day of the final catering tasting, my mom and Leia sat at the table in a swanky restaurant, pretending they knew anything about fine dining, while my dad scrolled through his phone. Leia was wearing a white jumpsuit, acting like she was already the bride. "You're taking notes, right?" she said to me, without looking up from her wine glass. I nodded, jotting something down, not the flavor profiles but every condescending word she said. "We'll need champagne for the toast, Dad, and the good kind. Not the kind Casey buys," she added, smirking. My parents laughed like she'd just told the joke of the year. That night, I stayed up until 2 a.m. putting my plan into place. Every invoice, every contract for the wedding was in my hands because they'd been too lazy to handle it themselves and had let me play assistant. And now, that meant every point of contact ran through me. 2 weeks before the wedding, I called the caterer, the florist, the DJ. I canceled it all politely, refunded where possible to my account, because my name was the one on the bookings. The rest I let burn. Then I rebooked, not for Leia's wedding, but for the exact same day, same venue. For a local community fundraiser I knew would fill the place with people they couldn't stand. The venue owner didn't care. They just wanted someone who'd pay on time. And I paid in full, smiling the whole time. The morning of the wedding, I dressed Eli in his best shirt and tie. We drove past the venue just as Leia was arriving. Hair in perfect curls. Face already tightening in confusion at the sight of a banner across the front. Annual neighborhood outreach banquet. People in casual clothes milled about carrying trays of food, not the white draped elegance she'd been promised. I didn't stop the car. I wanted her to walk inside and feel it. To realize that every person she'd invited was either standing around confused or already leaving. I wanted her to hear the music that wasn't her playlist. Smell the food that wasn't her menu. By noon, my phone was blowing up with calls. My mom's voice was shrill in the voicemails. "What did you do? Do you have any idea what you've done to your sister?" My dad's voice came next. "You've ruined her life. You spiteful little." The rest cut off. Eli and I spent the day at the park eating sandwiches and laughing. I let the phone buzz in my bag until the battery died. That night, I opened my laptop, my own laptop, bought with my own money, and blocked every one of their numbers. I didn't need to hear the begging that would come once the shock wore off. I didn't need to hear the fake apologies, the bargaining ID, given them years of meals, money, and silence. In return, they'd shown me exactly what I was worth to them: nothing. So I gave them the same in return, and for the first time in years, my son didn't go to bed hungry. Please subscribe to our channel, and tell us in comments from where you are watching this video.